Alright, welcome to this video. We are today going to talk about an aspect of history that pertains to Unit 6, the market revolution, or the transition from a subsistence economy to a market-oriented society, the Industrial Revolution, however you want to call it. What we're dealing with in this unit are significant transformations that take place in people's lives as they go from living in a economic system where you are interacting with people to achieve your needs, basically, right? You produce enough food so that you can eat, right? You produce enough clothes so that you can wear them. Many people aren't really thinking about producing enough things to take to a market to sell for a profit in a subsistence economy. This transition towards this new economy, this market-oriented society, is where people are now producing things. They can produce more than they can consume, and they can take that more, so to speak, to the market to make money. A lot of things take place in the United States that lead to this transition. For example, by about 1790, I think it was, maybe 1 in 20 Americans, U.S. Americans, lived in something that would be considered or defined as a city. By 1820, 1830, that number is reduced quite significantly to 1 in 4, I think, or 1 in 3 even in some areas. Um, Pittsburgh, Boston, New York, Chicago, Baltimore. Later on, after the Civil War, places like Alabama or in the Carolinas will blow up as big cities. That's not until next semester, right? In fact, in this semester, you'll notice, specifically in this unit 6, you'll notice that most of the industrial market-oriented changes occur in the north, and the South sort of doubles down on their support for the institution of slavery, something we'll talk about in the next unit. So you're going through your unit, you're looking at some of the key questions, you're understanding, for example, the 3 components to a market-oriented society, right? Technological innovations, surplus of labor, and the surplus of goods. Surplus of labor, meaning there are more people who need a job than there are jobs available, right? If I am the factory owner and every one of you out there are desperate for a job, and I'm the only one that has jobs, I got 5 jobs, and there's 30 of you in this class who all need a job, who does that benefit? You or me? Benefits me, right? Because I can pick who I want, and I can tell you if you don't want to be here, or you don't show up, or you get sick and you call in, fine. I got a line of people waiting over here who need a job, and I'll just pick from them. You'll be fired, right? There's no such thing as regulations on the economy at this point. That's not something that you're going to get into again until next semester. You're sort of on your own. It's the idea of a contract is upheld. I, as an employer, come to you as an employee with a contract. If you want to accept that contract, good. That's the deal. If you don't, then you can go find some other work. But as the Industrial Revolution starts emerging and more people are controlling larger, vast industries, it makes it difficult for you to go deny a contract that somebody is offering you, because that person oftentimes controls mass amounts of industries, right? So really, the system benefits the employer, who is the one supposedly taking the risks to establish the economy and transform business. Um, a surplus of goods. I mean, surplus meaning more than you can use, right? You're now producing more food than you can eat before it spoils, so you got to take it to the market. Technological innovations, railroads, steamboats. The Erie Canal is a great example, right? It kind of binds these waterways together on the East Coast, allowing steamboats, which is also another technological innovation that allows people to go upstream now, to navigate through various waters, binding the area together. Roads, if you've read any primary sources about the history of the United States prior to the 18th or the 19th century, roads were abysmal. There were hardly any roads, and most of them were in New England. One of the technological innovations is going to stimulate the market economy are roads, because people can't really go to the market to put their goods on sale if there's not transportation that allows you to get to the market, right? Railroads, however, are going to be the most important, and that's where I want to transition to this discussion unit, or this topic that we're dealing with in this unit called time, because the advent of the railroads allows people to travel significantly faster than they had ever done before. And this dramatically revolutionizes people's perception of time and space. In fact, I want you to memorize that line, right? Railroads dramatically increase or transform people's perception of time and space. This is something we take for granted for in our society today, right? You can hop on a plane, be on the other side of the world, and relatively quickly, or you can hop on a plane and be on the other side of the country in a few hours. Nobody had ever traveled as fast as railroads would allow you to in the early 1800s. And because of this, it significantly transforms people's perceptions of time and space, right? When you have a mass crowd of people who can jump on a railroad or on a train, and then they're all gone, that does something to your mindset, to your consciousness. It really shakes up what you think about time, right? In fact, before this market-oriented society transition, people lived in what we call a task-oriented society. Now we live in a time-oriented society, right? Everything you do is based on time. This video that I'm making is a specific bit of time, right? You're going to watch it at a particular form of time, and you have to be aware as you're watching it to make sure you don't waste too much time on it, because you have to be somewhere else on time. You have to wake up on time. You have to go to work at a particular time. When you get to work, you punch in a clock, which means your time belongs to the company, no longer to you, right? Your time is a means to an end for the company to profit from, right? All of these are big changes. Under the task-oriented society, people didn't think in terms of time, right? You had a job to do. You wake up in the morning, you do it, until you don't have until it gets dark and you can't do it anymore. And if you finish, you go to the next task. If not, you wake up the next morning and continue that task. And people very often had no idea what time it was. Watches were not very popular. People had sundials, right? You may have seen a sundial, but it doesn't work very well at night. People had candles with notches kind of locked in to those candles, so that when it starts to burn down to a particular area, you know how much time you have left before you have to move on to something else. But if the candle blows out, then you lose time, right? Um, so all of these ways of thinking, ways of organizing your life around time are far different when the market-oriented society begins to take over. Because what the biggest shift is that time begins to equal money, right? And everything in society begins to revolve around that concept. Um, these rudimentary forms of um, telling time get replaced with mechanical clocks, get replaced with watches. Everybody's got watches in the 19th century so they can keep track of their time. Before transportation allowed people to get from one place to another very quickly, people never even noticed the difference in time zones, right? Today we have 6 time zones in the United States. At the height of the problems in the negotiation process that people go through to try to, get things situated as they change in cultures, at one point in the 19th century, there were over 300 time zones in the United States before we finally settled on 6. That kind of gives you an idea of how much things were shaken up, and how much things began to sort of be out of control before they began to settle down. And this is because people had no idea, right? You got on a train, you moved to another area. People started eventually worrying why it was that when you travel so fast from one destination to another, the days look longer or shorter, or whatever the case may be. And so people began to work out this concept of time, which began to continuously or significantly transform their perceptions of what time is, right? Um, this, I think, is very important for you to understand, because it changes everything. It changes the work relationship, right? The master-apprentice relationship was much different than the boss-employee relationship. The master and apprentice relationship, he takes on an apprentice. The apprentice kind of follows you around, doesn't really pay you a wage, but gives you a place to live, and teaches you the tricks of the trade for years until you finally become an expert on your own to go out and get your own apprentices. That is replaced with, a boss who hires a manager to stay around at the factory and, supervise the employees who are going there for wage labor, less skilled work, just putting things on the conveyor belt and letting them to go through so that they can mass produce goods, right? You want to mass produce goods in a market-oriented society because you want to have enough stuff that people can take to the market for sale. So this shapes up everything. People's entire perceptions of time begin to unravel and get replaced with something new. And that's very much what we are in today. Time equals money, right? Your entire life revolves around the clock. We are almost slaves to time, right? We get so anxious, we get so worried. Our lives are entirely filled with where do we got to be? What time do we have to be there? How do we get there? Which is a much different way of seeing the world and way of viewing the world than you would in a task-oriented society, right? And I want to point out that this transformation takes place during this period of what we call Unit 6 in the market-oriented society.